Good evening. Welcome to The Big Story. I'm Regina Lay.
I'm Gretchen Ho.
And I'm Sean Yao.
Tonight's big stories. After much drama over the scheduling, Rodrigo Duterte finally faces the House Quad Committee, trading barbs with lawmakers and losing his cool at former Senators Laila De Lima and Sonny Trillanes.
During the hearing, Duterte challenged the International Criminal Court, hurry up with your investigation into the drug war and get him while he's still alive.
Over at the other side of town, his daughter, Vice President Sara, was at the Senate for the deliberations on her OVP budget. Senators passed the House version without asking a single question.
Rapper, no? Duterte in the House, parang song title. We're already about 10 hours into the House Quad Committee hearing, and it's still going. That's pretty impressive considering the decision to reinstate the hearing was only made at 3 a.m. this morning.
Well, today, Duterte once again confirmed the drug-related killings, but he says they were only for pushers and manufacturers. He also admitted to giving money and incentives to cops.
This version of Duterte was a lot more civil than the one that faced the Senate. But still, he could not or would not hold back at some points. Marian Enriquez with the report.
Former President Rodrigo Duterte was flanked by his former cabinet members when he attended his very first House Quad Committee hearing. This hearing was technically cancelled Monday night, but after last-minute huddle, the committee announced very early this morning it will push through after Duterte's camp said he had already flown in all the way from Davao.
Any expectations sa Quadcom hearing, sir?
Fairness.
He took the oath along with his legal counsel attorney Martin Delgra, former Labor Secretary Silvestre Bello III, and former presidential spokesperson Salvador Panelo. After which, the committee immediately laid down its rules, respect and no cursing.
Pag kayo po ay nagmura sa Quadcom hearing na ito, I will make a point of order on you. Meron po akong batayan na batas sa tinatawag po nating disturbance of proceedings.
But alas, just a few minutes into the hearing, a shouting match between Duterte and Quadcom co-chair Caraps Paduano ensued.
You know the internal rules. Let the members of this committee finish the question before answering.
Nakalimutan
The rules.
ko na yun. Yung rules na yun.
Oh, now, I want you.
Hindi
Pinapaalala ko po.
I'm not.
Now again, Mr. Chairman.
Duterte eventually apologized.
I'm not trying to be smart, Alec. I'm sorry if I'm overdoing it.
Yeah, it's okay po, Mr. President. No problem po.
It's not really, hindi ko sinasadya yan.
Opo.
I respect I was once a member of Congress. Medyo emotional lang kasi ako basta sa crime na talagang galit ako sa kriminal.
But then the temperature started rising again when the panel played videos of the ex-president ordering the drug war killings.
If you insist on a drug war, I will kill you.
Duterte's seatmate, former Senator Laila De Lima, gave him a sullen glance. Just as Quadcom co-chair Dan Fernandez asked about an article quoting the Department of Justice pertaining to De Lima as the mother of all drug lords.
I would like to congratulate them for making this statement.
That is a fictitious, bogus allegation against me. I was cleared of all 3 drug cases. I underwent the whole process. Dumaan po ako sa buong proseso kahit mahirap, masakit para sa akin. Kinulong ako ng almost 7 years na hindi na po nila yan mababalikan dahil sa pagkagalit nung pinaka-mastermind nung pag-persecute sa akin.
At some point, Duterte made a gesture as if he wanted to punch De Lima after she called out the inconsistency of his testimonies. The former president was then asked about self-confessed Davao Death Squad member Arturo Las Cañas, who said he received orders directly from Duterte as to who to kill and how to dispose of the bodies.
Storyteller yan sa? Si Raulo, medyo bungog ngayon.
Another word war ensued when Duterte was asked if he was who Las Cañas referred to as the Lord of all drug lords.
Papabili siguro ako ng mga aspirin, gano'n. Pero
That's
hindi
your last
ako
question.
dadating na pagka-presidente, sir, kung gano'n ako.
Sir, can you kindly tone down your voice?
Oh, yeah, yes. Mayor ako, hindi ako dadating ng pagka-presidente kung gano'n ako katurpe.
Kayo po yung Lord of all drug lords na sinasabi po ni Arturo Las Cañas. Yung po ang tinatanong ko.
Gabriela Partiles Representative Arlene Brosas also seemed to catch Duterte's ire.
Tama ba na tawagin po itong Davao model or Davao style, Mr. Chair?
I cannot control the semantics.
Mr. Chair, yes or no? Davao style.
Do not ask me to answer yes or no. You are not an investigator.
Mr. Chair, tayo po ay nasa investigasyon kasalukuyan,
Yes,
Mr.
but you
Chair.
are not an investigator. Why are you asking me to answer
Mr.
yes
Chair,
or no?
tinatanong ko lang naman.
Although he did admit to some drug-related killings when he was mayor of Davao City.
Ako? Marami. Mga 6 or 7. In one drug den doon sa Davao City, 4 na Chinese, pinatay ko talaga. Ang problema, may tinamaan na 2 yung nagluluto. Pero yung 4 na in-check na talagang pinatay ko. Sinadya ko talagang patpatayin. Marami akong pinatay na pulis sa Davao na kriminal. Magtanong kayo sa Davao, mag-go around. Ano yung ako mismo ang talagang humirit. Harap-harapan. Marami akong pinatay na pulis na gago na mag-kidnap, mag-rape, tapos magpatay.
Duterte also confirmed a reward system for the police. Recall that former CIDG officer and PCSO General Manager Royina Garma testified that Duterte gave 20,000 to 1 million pesos to cops every drug-related killing.
Bigyan ko yan sila ng, okay, I'll give you 20,000. Pag may sobra niyan, magsabi sila, sir, hindi na ubos. Kasi nahuli ka agad. Sabi ko, inyo na yan.
Mr. Chair,
Reward. Correct. Very correct. Talagang totoo. At minsan, bigyan ko pa dagdag.
The funds, he said, came from excess campaign money when he was running for president.
Pero galing sa akin. Hindi na private money. Kasi natanggap ko yan. Ano na ako nakahawak ko na the money I was holding was already when I was in the official na ako.
But in accordance with the rule of COMELEC, yung excess money po na ginagamit po natin sa kampanya must be returned back to the COMELEC, Mr. Chair, to the donors, Mr.
Maniwala
President.
Tanungin kita, sinong kandidato nagsauli?
Mr. President, you cannot ask question.
But Duterte says now that he's retired from politics, he's also quitting the killing sprees.
Hindi na ako papatay siya. Retired na ako eh. Kung may kasalanan man ako, ayaw kong pumunta ng impyerno. Pagdasal mo na lang rin ako, sir, kasi alam mo man talaga na
Mr. President,
trabaho lang yun.
Late this afternoon, another staunch critic of Duterte, former Senator Antonio Trillanes, also showed up to the hearing. Recall that he was the one who said transcripts of the Senate's drug war probe that the former president attended have been submitted to the International Criminal Court. For News 5, I'm Marian Enriquez. We are One News.
There were also surprise guests at today's Quadcom hearing. Among them, Vice President Sara Duterte, who showed up unannounced. She dropped by the hearing at around 4 this afternoon after attending the Senate deliberations on her office's budget. Before making her appearance at the House inquiry, Vice President Sara said it was her father's personal decision to show up to the Batasan today. As usual, she did not have nice things to say about the House hearings.
I do not expect fairness. Makikita natin na kahit unconstitutional na, yung rules ay ginagamit pa rin. Kahit wala sa rules, ay gumagawa sila ng rules as they go along, as they do their hearings.
Meanwhile, the vice president didn't catch this part. Her father telling the International Criminal Court to hurry up with its investigation into his drug war.
The ICC does not scare me a bit. They can come here anytime. Bigyan mo ako ng pera, ako nang punta ng ICC doon. Ako na mismo magpa-imbestiga doon. Ang tagal nila, hurry up. Kasi baka matanda na ako, mamatay ako.
Malacanang has responded to this through a statement from Executive Secretary Lucas Bersamin. He says, and I quote, "If the former president desires to surrender himself to the jurisdiction of the ICC, the government will neither object to it nor move to block the fulfillment of his desire. But if the ICC refers the process to the Interpol, which may then transmit a red notice to the Philippine authorities, the government will feel obliged to consider the red notice as a request to be honored, in which case the domestic law enforcement agencies shall be bound to accord full cooperation to the Interpol pursuant to established protocols." This was echoed by the Department of Justice, whose response read in part, the Secretary has repeatedly said that despite the withdrawal of the Philippines from the Rome Statute, the country remains a member country of the Interpol. Thus, when requests are made by the ICC through the Interpol, Interpol in turn relays such requests to our country, the Philippine government is legally obliged to accord due course to the same by all means. For his part, Senate President Cheese Escudero doubted that the ICC investigation can be hastened. He also repeated that the decision to rejoin is entirely on the President and that the Senate's only role is to ratify any treaties.
Paano ulit i-operationalize ni Pangulong Duterte na madaliin yung ICC, siya yung umalis doon? Hindi sinasabi ko lang. Paano? Hindi na bahagi ang Pilipinas ng ICC dahil sa kanya. Tapos ngayon, papamadaliin niya yung ICC. Ang question dito nga, paano nga, siya nga yung umalis doon, di ba? Kaya nga wala tayo doon dahil sa kanya eh. So paano niya ngayon pagsasabihin at papamadaliin yon?
Up next, the Office of the Vice President budget for 2025 gets the Senate's nod, and in no less than 10 minutes. How? The details when the big story returns. Keep it here. Welcome back. You're still watching the big story here on One News. As we mentioned, Vice President Sara Duterte had come from the Senate headquarters before dropping by the Quad Committee hearing. At the Senate, it took all of 10 minutes to approve her budget for 2025, a stark contrast from her experience at the lower house. Man Los Baños with the big story.
Vice President Sara Duterte was all smiles when she greeted senators before the upper chamber's plenary deliberations on her office's budget. And just minutes after the discussion started, Senator Bato de la Rosa, loyal PNP chief to Sara's father Digong, made this motion.
I hereby move for the approval of the OVP budget.
Another Duterte ally, Senator Bongo, made an appeal to his colleagues to restore the OVP's proposed budget. Recall that the House of Representatives cut the agency's budget by nearly 1.3 billion pesos and only approved 733 million pesos in OVP funds for 2025 after the Vice President refused to answer questions and eventually boycotted the hearings.
Para naman po makapagtrabaho ng maayos ang ating Vice Presidente na parte po ng executive branch of the government. Para naman meron tayong working Vice President at hindi lang po spare tire. Huwag ho nating pilayan ang gustong magtrabaho.
Unlike in the lower chamber where a lot of big questions still hung in the balance, none was asked at the Senate. In less than 10 minutes, the OVP budget was approved by senators in the plenary. In an ambush interview with reporters afterwards, VP Sara did raise concerns about the future of her satellite offices, which were among the biggest expenses in her budget. According to her, about 200 OVP employees could lose their jobs, and this could affect the office's operations.
Yes, ma'am, or the closure of satellite offices is a possibility depending on the budget. Pagtapon namin ng funding doon sa kanila, merong opisina na sumasalo at gumagamit ng budget, nag-i-implement ng project.
Duterte also took another swipe at the House of Representatives.
Because it's clearly a political persecution. Nakita ko na nga, ilang beses ko na inulit, no? Last year pa lang, even if approved naman sa left yung budget ng OVP, pagdating namin sa House of Representatives, binanakan kami ng binanakan. Nakita natin, yung budget hearing namin, yung mga tanong hindi naman related sa mga proposals namin ng mga projects. Related siya sa confidential funds. So nandun pa rin yung storyline nila na attack sa confidential funds.
There has been no indication from the senators that the OVP's budget may be restored to the 2 billion she was asking for initially, but they're willing to discuss this issue further. Once approved by Senate, both versions of the national budget will be reconciled by a bicameral conference committee, but that will happen behind closed doors. Reporting for News 5, Mean Los Baños, we are One News.
Well, the fact that the final budget gets reconciled behind closed doors is one of the reasons there are so much unprogrammed appropriations now. And at last night's Senate hearing on PhilHealth's budget, the issue came up again. The chaos began when Senator J.V. Ejercito aired frustration over the 89 billion peso unused funds of PhilHealth that were ordered returned to the National Treasury. Ejercito said he fought for a higher budget to address the large number of Filipinos who can't pay their hospital bills, only for this money to be rerouted. But the way PhilHealth President Manny Ledesma answered him was, to quote Ejercito here, may pagkapresko and borderline bastos. Take a listen to part of the exchange.
I think po, with all due respect, parang wag naman sabihin na wala po kaming ginagawa. Parang mali rin ata to pin the blame fully on me. Why? Kasi again, ulitin ko po, 'di ba? Itong pera na to, it was piling up through the years. Hindi naman this is all accumulated through a long period of time. I think it's wrong to point the finger at me.
Sabi mo, wag ikaw ituturo. But sino ituturo namin?
Mr. President,
Ba dapat leadership to?
May I remind our resource persons, especially since we have suspended the rules, to temper the responses with an iota of humility and perhaps answer correctly the questions being propounded by a member of this chamber, so that we can have a semblance of sincere discussions.
News 5 sources even quoted Senator Robin Hood Padilla calling out and cursing Ledesma outside the plenary hall, but in a statement afterwards, Padilla said he was just advising the PhilHealth president. The debate ended in the failure of the Senate plenary to pass the budgets of PhilHealth and the Department of Health, but the Senate was quick to clarify that it wasn't because of the way Ledesma answered the panel, but because there are still other senators scheduled to question him regarding the budget on Monday, November 18. The
House comm meeting is
I don't
still
even know where to
ongoing.
begin. So the father-daughter duo at the legislative chambers today, although it was a lot less drama over at the Senate today.
It was over and done with, and nobody asked the question.
What I was
No, the drama supposedly happened outside the plenary hall, right? Well, that's according to our report and the sources.
Oh, you mean
saw, like, the
with
tiff.
PhilHealth? No,
With
the
PhilHealth,
PhilHealth
with
hearing
PhilHealth,
was last
yes.
night, but today I'm talking about the OVP budget hearing, which she breezed through in Senate. But
10 minutes. But,
10
what I was
minutes.
surprised with was the quorum over at the House Quad Committee hearing. They were able to really hold their ground that the president should not say any profanity.
You mean you're happier at how it was?
You can
the
say
chairman
it, the
asked
moderation was better.
Yeah.
The moderation
Yeah.
was a lot better.
was a lot
than
better.
what happened over at the Senate.
Right.
We did see, though.
Because
I
now
mean-
he's not rambling. And,
Yes, and they're quick to, suspend the hearing for a minute and when things get a little bit hot
Too heated,
and spicy.
yes.
However, there are still some bits and pieces, some video that made it online. So
let's
guys just look for
try to process some of these, as we were just saying, the two of them at the upper house and lower house today. We have with us tonight party list representative, ACT Teachers Party List representative, Franz Castro, who was also at the hearing. She joins us now live over the phone on the line. Good evening, Congressman Castro. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, good evening, and to your viewers.
Good evening, Congresswoman. Thank you for stepping away from the hearing for us. I know everybody's there right now, but we just wanted to get a better sense of what's going on. So ito na nga, after much ado, President Duterte, former President Duterte, is finally here. It's been 10 hours since the hearing started. Are you satisfied with what you've been, the kind of answers that you've been getting over in the hearing today? And what stood out for you?
Well, kami naman ay natuwa at dumating siya. For how many notices, even in the previous committee hearings in the human rights, we've been calling her, we've been calling him. Ngayon ay dumating naman siya. So maganda naman at maibigay niya rin yung yung kanyang position on the different statements provided by the previous resource person. So, better na makuha talaga natin yung truth.
So you feel like you're getting more answers this time around? He's giving you more details? Kasi for instance, in some of the issues like with the reward money, parang hindi pa rin masyadong clear what the system, what the structure is like. But is it now more clear to you guys over there?
Yes, more or less naman hindi lang din naman siya yung source, noong nung ating nung pinagkukuhanan natin ng sagot about the reward system. Kasi hindi lang naman si President Duterte at may iba't ibang mga resource person din. And I mean, nagko-collaborate naman at meron naman siyang pag-amin talaga na meron talagang mga reward.
Over at the Senate hearing, he admitted to having a Davao Death Squad, although he had 3 definitions for that. And also he admitted to urging criminals to fight back, which was a huge revelation. Dito naman po sa House hearing, ano po para sa inyo yung mga pag-amin na nagawa na niya that can help build up a case against the former president?
Yes, yung mga pag-amin niya on yung mga pinapatay niya, Yung sabi ko nga dumami, 30,000 more or less yung biktima ng EJK sa war on drugs. And yet there are not a single of yung mga drug lords, yung mga smugglers, yung mga big fish, yung may mga manufacturer ng shabu. And even yung kanyang kaibigan, close friend, economic manager niya before, na si Michael Yang, na sinasabi ng mga resource person na involved sa drugs, ay hindi naman niya nakasuhan. Pero ito nga, marami siyang mga incriminating statements. Like yung sinabi niya na meron daw siyang inuhulog sa dagat or sa sea, yung mga drug lords, pero hindi naman niya napapangalanan. Pero tingin natin sapat na to, para mismo sa kanya, inaamin niya na wala talagang due process, wala talagang rule of law sa panahon niya.
But Congresswoman, as far as Michael Yang is concerned, sabi po ni Duterte, he insisted that he's not a drug lord, that he's not involved in the illegal drugs trade. And I remember he challenged Congressman Raul Manuel to produce evidence, which obviously is, a defense tactic. But what do we make of these statements na sometimes sasabihin niya, oh, I was just exaggerating, or yung mga inconsistencies in the testimony, for instance?
Siyempre, we will going to process pa yung lahat ng mga testimonies, lahat ng mga revelations dito para makapag-come up tayo nun talagang conclusion. Pero marami talagang mga witnesses natin na nagsasabi, and even former Senator Trillanes ay sinasabing involved itong si Michael Yang at iba pang mga Chinese na drug lords na malapit kay Duterte. So, yun ay maipaprocess pa sa mga susunod na mga hearing.
Actually, yung sinabi niya kay Michael Yang is hindi daw drug lord si Michael Yang, at kung drug lord siya, sana pinapatay niya na.
Exactly.
And come with me and watch it, and you would have witnessed a murder. He used the term murder.
Yes, sabi niya sa sagot niya sa akin, kapag meron daw na ebidensya na magpapatunay na drug lord or may kinalaman sa droga si Michael Yang, ay papatayin niya raw. Yun ang sinabi niya. Pero I do not agree naman sa ganitong proseso, di ba? So we believe talaga in rule of law na dapat sundin. Kaya sabi nga natin, no wonder yung ating ganun ang nangyari doon sa ating mga biktima ng EJK na walang mga due process, walang rehabilitation, walang doubt, etc. So ginamitan talaga ng ng force.
He says the only reason you suspect Michael Yang is because he's Chinese daw. Is there any truth to that?
Nag-ano ako doon, naglinaw ako doon. Ang tinitignan lang natin, hindi naman tayo against sa Chinese as a whole. Marami naman talaga tayong mga kababayang Chinese din, maayos naman at nakakatulong sa atin. Ito lang siyempre, yung mga sindikato, yung mga kriminal na mga Chinese dito sa ating bansa. At ayun na nga, yung mga involved dito sa droga.
Congressman Franz, ang daming nakapansin din na medyo smooth nga yung pagfa-facilitate, yung pagmamoderate sa hearing na ito under the co-chairman of the Quadcom. Pero syempre may moments din, although mabilis mag-suspend kung sino yung may hawak ng gavel, may mga moments of tension din. Ano po ba yung pinag-usapan ng komite kung if ever magyari nga na may ganitong mga tense moments? Did you agree on how the conduct of this hearing, yung mga basic rules? I mean, there's already rules, but even more rules amongst yourselves.
Yes, oo. Ayos nga yung conduct nung Chairman Barbers. Lalong-lalo na pag mainit na yung usapan between the resource person at saka yung yung nagtatanong, yung ating mga representative. Maganda yung ma-prevent yung yung init at kapag mag-away pa o mag-physical pa. So, I think yung conduct ng ating chairman, ng aming chairman dito sa Quadcom ay sinusuportahan naman ng tao at mga nagka-congratulate nga yung mga tao dito sa ating chairman at saka Quadcom sa ginagawa nating hearing.
Congresswoman, matanong ko lang, paano nga ba natabis ng upuan si former President Rodrigo Duterte at si former Justice Secretary Laila de Lima? Sinadya ba yan?
We were just saying,
kasi sa Senate, one person away.
Medyo awkward naman.
Parang gusto na pong suntukin ni former President si
Batuhan ng mic.
Hindi ko alam yung umpisa kung paano sila nagkaupo na nagkatabi sila. Pero nakita ko kasi yung inambaan kasi ni Mr. Duterte, si De Lima. Kaya binulungan ko nga yung SecGen. Baka pwedeng tanungin kay De Lima kung gusto niyang lumipat. So, okay naman, kaya naman niyang i-handle yung mga ganon. Kung natatandaan ninyo, di ba, senator pa siya, nung nag-away si Trillanes sa si Cayetano. Siya rin yung nasa gitna.
Kong France, on Michael Yang, no? Paminsan-minsan throughout the hearing, sumusulpot yung kanyang pangalan, whether yung issue is sa EJK, yung issue is sa illegal drugs or sa POGOs.
Yeah.
So, ang tanong ko is, do you think, based on, so far, nasa 11th Quadcom hearing tayo, plus that one Senate hearing, do you think you have enough to actually file an actual case with evidence against Michael Yang?
Yes, yan ay ipaprocess ng DOJ. No, katulad din ng ginagawa nila ngayon kay yung iba pang mga mga pulis, yung mga colonel na involved dito sa EJK. So hindi kasi kami yung magpa-file. Pwede kami mag-recommend, no, at ibigay yung mga nag-gather naming mga evidence.
Hey, Congresswoman, can you help us understand why up to now there have been no cases? Am I correct? Kasi si former president kanina pa niya sinasabi, file a case in court and I will do the same admissions over there. Bakit po walang kaso?
And even si Rowena Garma, she was able to leave because there's no case against her.
Oo. Mukhang malakas ang loob niya, no? Kasi nung panahon niya, nakita naman natin meron talaga siyang kautusan sa mga kapulisan na yung mga evidence no, hindi pwedeng ibigay sa mga nangihingi. Meron siyang ganun na utos sa pulis, sa mga kapulisan. Kaya parang malakas ang loob niya na walang makikitang ebidensya. Pero kaya kami nga mas pinipili natin na iakyat sa ICC. Dahil sa ICC kasi sila yung tinitignan dito yung most responsible doon sa crime against humanity.
Congresswoman?
So, tingin natin, pa-process yan ng DOJ.
Okay. Pero Congresswoman, may point rin kasi yung dating presidente, siya na mismo nagsabi, I believe this was to the Senate, sabi niya, huy, magti 3 years na, wala pa rin nagpa-file ng kaso, which I thought was a pretty good point. Oo nga naman, hindi na siya in power.
Yes,
oo. So what do you think was the reason, or is the reason behind the delay in the filing of cases nga against the former president?
Yeah, so kagaya na sinabi ko, no, yung mga kapulisan, no, nakita naman natin hawak niya noong mga panahon na yon, yung mga evidence, di natin alam kung ano kasi hindi nga ibinigay yan sa mga biktima, no, kaya talagang nahihirapan talaga na mag-file. Pero kung matapos talaga itong Quadcom hearing na ito at merong mga recommendation like yung mga police na i-open lahat ng mga evidences, no, na magpapatunay whether kay Duterte man yan, yung mga police at iba pang mga sangkot and accountable, ay baka later on kapag tapos na ng siguro hearings ng mga Quadcom.
Yeah. Congresswoman, lastly, let me jump over to one more issue. We ran the story of the OVP budget being approved in Senate today in less than 10 minutes. But it has to go through a BICAMPA, as will the overall national budget, right? The Makabayan bloc is asking that the BICAM talks be open to the public. Talk us through why that's important.
Yes, we filed a bill, no, to make it open because in the past years, kasi may mga supposedly kapag nag-BICAM, yung sanang hindi nagtutugma ng mga provisions sa two houses, no, dapat yun lang yung ginagalaw. Pero ang nagiging problema natin, yung mga amount ginagalaw kahit na-approve na sa House of Representatives, pagdating sa bicameral, talagang parang in-overhaul nila, no, yung budget, including the amount. At saka nagdadagdag, bawas sila noong mga items. So, which is unconstitutional. Kaya dapat ay maging maging transparent, open to the public para alam natin, no, yung mga na-approve sa Kongreso dito sa House of Representatives at Senate, no, at hindi dapat ito nadadagdagan at binabawasan. So, gusto natin makita rin ng public para maging more transparent yung budget natin.
May suporta yung bill? May suporta po ba yung bill?
That's actually where the unprogrammed
appropriations
happened. But how confident are you that this bill will pass before we approve the 2025 GAA?
Well, siyempre, ano to, no? Matagal na naming proposal to, suntok sa buwan, pero at least nakikita ng taong bayan ano, na tayo ay talagang consistent dun sa panawagan natin na maging transparent yung pagdinig dito sa budget. Be it confidential, be it UA, no? Lahat talaga dapat ay i-open sa ating taong bayan para makita naman ng taong bayan kung paano pinoproseso sabay yung budget.
Okay. We will have to leave that there and let you get back to the hearing. Thank you so much for your time tonight. That was ACT Teachers Party List Congresswoman Franz Castro.
Pausing now for a quick break, but right after that, floodwaters have yet to recede in dozens of barangays in Cagayan Valley, leaving thousands of residents homeless. We'll be getting live updates on the ground when the big story returns. Stay with us.
Welcome back to watching the big story here on One News. Whole barangays in the Cagayan province are still flooded after heavy rain from tropical cyclones Christine, Marce, and Nika have hit the province. A problem for thousands of residents who remain in evacuation centers. Let's get an update on the ground from News 5 correspondent Brian Basa, who is in Tuguegarao, Cagayan. Brian, Tuguegarao is among those hit by massive flooding in the province. How is the situation right there?
Hi, Regina, Gretchen, and Sean. We are talking about some 5,000 residents who are affected by the floods. Almost 3,000 of them are in evacuation centers. Yung iba are seeking shelter sa mga kakilala nila, their neighbors' houses, yung mga mas matataas ang bahay. Tapos they come from 31 out of 49 barangays in Tuguegarao. So ibig sabihin, more than half or para mga 60% of the city got flooded. Tapos iba-iba yung level ng floods dyan. The nearer a barangay is to the river, the deeper the flood gets. So, for example, nakapunta tayo sa Centro Jess, isa yan sa mga low-lying areas sa Tuguegarao City, umabot sa hanggang bubong. Ang flood. Dito naman, for example, where I'm standing now is Libag Norte, Kapatan. Medyo bumaba na yung flooding. Kanina medyo may tubig pa rito, but now we are stepping on land. Kita natin yung semento. So we're expecting that to subside over the next few hours. So yes, iba-iba ang level ng floods depende sa kung gaano sila kalapit sa Cagayan River. Ladies.
Saan ang pinaka baga dun sa 31 out of 49, ilan doon yung talagang abot ng bubong, yung pagbaha? And also, is this a regular occurrence or is it at different levels this time around?
There are parang mas marami Reg yung malapit sa river because this whole region, the Cagayan Valley, it's actually a catch basin. So mas maraming barangays ang nakasituate near the river. And let's also not forget that because this is an agricultural area, so mas marami talaga tayong makitang cornfields, rice fields. So of course, these types of soil, yung farmlands ay mas malapit talaga sa river, hence the flooding. And again, yun nga, dahil nga mas malapit sa river, mas malalim yung flooding. And yes, it is a regular occurrence. Lalo't being a catch basin, it's catching all the water, Cagayan Valley and in effect, Tuguegarao City. It's catching the waters from higher areas in the Cordillera region. So, for example, pag umulan sa bandang gitna, sa mga mountainous areas natin, sa northern Luzon, pwede yung bumaba sa Cagayan. Also, Isabela, actually. We have heard, di ba, over the past few days and over the past few weeks na tinamaan ng bagyo ang Isabela. So yung tubig doon, bumababa yan sa Cagayan River, and that causes the flooding. Also, we have Magat Dam, which also releases water every time there is a storm, which causes more rains and therefore more water. Ladies.
Oo nga, Cagayan Valley nga naman talaga siya. So, of course, we know usual pathway rin yan ng bagyo. Ngayon, ito nga yung tinitignan ko no? 5 bagyo in 5 straight weeks. Brian, yung Ophel, nagbabadya na. Ano yung preparations now? And I understand, baha pa. So, talagang we can expect na inundated and saturated pa yung ground. And then they will expect siguro more floods. And this one has a landfall forecast as well. What are the early preps happening? No? Kasi baha nga, tapos magpa-prepare ka for another bagyo, sunod-sunod na. And give us a sense of, paano yung preparations dyan? Magulo ba? Yung very organized ba?
That's right. The expectation, if we are to follow logic, since they have evacuated the residents, since they have evacuated nitong Typhoon Nika, and because of the, para maiwasan itong flooding, the expectation is dapat hindi sila uuwi rito, no, kahit mag-subside yung flooding, because there is Typhoon Ophel that is about to hit northern Luzon. Although kanina kasi nakakita tayo ng ilang residente who check the areas, yung mga bahay nila, if there are entrepreneurs, yung mga negosyante, they're checking yung mga pwesto nila sa palengke. The expectation is balik pa rin sila sa evacuation center because the worst is not yet over. That's why the local government is reiterating, hindi sila napapagod kahit na they say that they're already tired. They still make it a point to call for residents to evacuate while the weather is fair, to head to safer ground while school is out, while work is off. Kasi di ba nagsuspend si Mayor Myla Tinque, in particular dito sa Tuguegarao City, ng classes and work. And she said this, nagsuspend ng klase at trabaho, hindi para maglakwatsa, no? Not to go to malls and shop or not to go anywhere else, but rather to prepare for the bad or inclement weather that is about to come. So, ang ginagawa nila, nag-iikot pa rin sila sa mga iba't ibang barangay. They're encouraging residents and reminding them, evacuate if you need to evacuate, especially if they know that they are living in low-lying areas. Also, yung preposition supplies, andoon pa rin naman. We have been to the People's Gymnasium. Yun yung para activity center nila. We saw canned goods, rice, as in bigas, no? Water, clothes, lahat naka-pack na yan ready for the residents. Also, our very own Alagang Kapatid Foundation, nagbigay din sila ng pagkain sa mga residente rito. And they will make it a point to reach other towns in Cagayan as well. Ladies.
Mukhang nga kailangan na paghandaan at to hold your breath, because apart from Ophel, there's also Pepito that is on the way to the Philippine Area of Responsibility. We hope the situation does not get worse, but thank you so much for those updates. Reporting from Tuguegarao, we have News 5's Brian Basa.
Okay, before we say goodbye, here's our big picture, or for tonight, it's going to be a big video. There is certainly no love lost between former President Rodrigo Duterte and former Senators Laila de Lima and Antonio Trillanes. So, when the three crossed paths and even sat very near one another in today's Quadcom hearing, things got a little bit heated. This is what we were talking about earlier. Now, first, here's the encounter between the former President and former Senator de Lima.
The next to interpolate is Congressman Ernix Junicio. You have 10 minutes. The next to interpolate.
Okay. So, now, clarify lang natin yung context. So, in this battle of Duterte versus De Lima, si former President Duterte, yung fist gesture na yon, yung nakita natin, that came after former Senator Laila De Lima's manifestation about his pronouncement of taking full responsibility for his anti-drug campaign and his apparent refusal to say her name during the proceedings. So, napansin na natin yun. Ayaw rin niya sabihin yung name ni former Senator
No,
Trillanes.
he insisted that he didn't know who the Commission on Human Rights chair was at that
He's like,
time, which
si
obviously
ano,
is not believable. So parang, I don't know what
But
game
you
he
agree
was
that
trying
she
to
was
play.
the queen, ba?
Queen of
all
drug
drug
lords.
lords.
Pero you know what
That's
I
right,
noticed
he accused.
also?
He
Yeah.
said thank you for your for
Malaking
your-
thing yung mga ganyan eh. Because who we just spoke to, Congresswoman Franz Castro, she also never called President Duterte President
That's
Duterte.
right. Don't
she would
name
just
them.
say, Mr.
Naming someone has power. Okay.
Okay.
There's another one.
There's another one. Here's the exchange
Ito
naman
mas
between
matindi.
ito naman no, between Duterte and former Senator Trillanes.
Sabi
That would be Duterte's
So,
mic
Parang ano,
versus Trillanes.
ang daming naipon na galit doon sa kanyang pag-aamba.
Okay, so linawin lang natin muna Gretch kung kailan ba nangyari itong Duterte's mic versus former Senator Trillanes. Now, that mic incident happened after the exchange between former President Duterte and Trillanes on Trillanes' accusation that drug money flowed in the Duterte family bank accounts. Now, when Deputy Speaker J.J. Suarez from Quezon challenged Duterte to sign a bank secrecy waiver within the day, no, bago matapos yung hearing, tinanong ng dating presidente, anong kapalit? Sampalin ko siya?
So yun na nga yung, that's what's making the headlines now. And also, it was not caught on cam, but apparently Trillanes had said something to Duterte off cam. So we don't know what that is. We don't know what that is. This is before the mic,
So
yung
you're
mic
right, no?
gesture.
You're right, Reg. It was not seen nga no, in the video. But before former President Duterte held the mic, former Senator Trillanes seemed to have said something to Duterte,
Yes.
which apparently irked him.
Yeah.
So here's a different angle of that confrontation, that same confrontation. This one's from Rappler.
sabi
Dapat marami tayong mga camera dyan o iba't ibang angle. Parang sa basketball
360
lang.
cam
Diba?
dapat. Actually, in
Maybe we
fairness
should,
to Father Flavio,
maybe they should not have put them side by
Tapos sa
side.
NBA, meron mga mic yan lahat para naririnig mo yung mga
And a
conversation.
commentary. That's right. When the referees talk to each other, sometimes
Yeah.
you
You can
can
hear.
hear. Sometimes they'll
Consider
up the
that, no?
audio.
So nothing
or we can call Father
away.
Flavio, who was right in between
Or
them.
we could call
We can
former
ask.
Senator Laila De Lima, who looked really concerned, by the way, nung tumayo si former President Duterte.
Yung mukha niya parang,
oh my God.
Ewan ko lang, I wonder if this will extend to, sabi, 10-day marathon?
I don't know if that's going to happen. But
if it will
certainly
be
it's
a single
becoming
day.
a marathon hearing because it is still ongoing.
And
Well, you know, it's only
we
9
are
o'clock.
getting a marathon.
We are getting a marathon as promised, and we've learned to expect
There's a lot
this.
of action as well.
Right, but for
And some
those
surprise guests.
For
Former
those-
Senator Trillanes was not, I don't think he was expected there as well. Invited,
Yeah,
pero we didn't expect
hapon na siya
him.
dumating at after
Correct.
lunch, right? And bandying about those bank documents. Pati nga, nagulat nga ako, pati si Congressman Paduano, tinanong siya, teka lang, paano mo ba nakuha yan?
Yes.
Kasi, I guess lots of things still to unfold. But for
hopefully
those,
no more throwing incidents, no? Hopefully no one gets hurt tonight. Hopefully no
and
one
for
gets
those
hurt.
who need a quick break, maybe try some sports news because that's it from the big story tonight.
Kala ko sa sports ko lang makikita yung mga taunting, tsaka yung mga mga ganun. Tapos yung kailangan i-hold back. Pero pati sa pati sa house makikita natin yan. But for more action, stay tuned for the next show. In the meantime, we are One News, all sides, all the time.
Thanks for tuning in. Have a good night.
And speaking of sports, coming up next is Play-by-Play with Andre Felix and Cheska Litton Calao. Andre, Cheska.
Thank you,
We
Gretch.
have action over there.
And Sean, grabe, no? That was, wow, what a day, the Quadcom hearing. Pwede ba isama sa highlights yun?
Kailangan na talaga namin magpaalam kasi manunood pa kaming tatlo.
Okay.
You're right. We should make a highlight
Oo
reel.
nga eh. Pero tama si Gretch, ha? May iba-ibang angles like in basketball games. Well, we've got Steph Curry spoiling Klay Thompson's return to the Bay Area on any angle. And another NU upset in UAAP men's basketball.
And we've got player movement in the PVL as Joe Maraginot changes teams.
I'm Andre Felix.
And I'm Cheska Leton-Calao.
And here's tonight's play-by-play.
Ramiro, the show by Mamoy Lee. Puts it on. Unbelievable. Gemma on the left side.